Book Bones, Chapter 22. I took Beverly Boulevard west as Milo phoned Global Investment in Seattle. Several underlinings and one private banker later, he arranged to cage the fact that the Palacitas-based service called Happy Hands cleaned both Vanderhouses on an as-needed basis. Who determines when it's needed? Said Milo. And how would I know that? Said the banker. Click. Milo glared at the phone, stashed it. So Huck does control the process. My gut's telling me that he's split. But like I said, going public is always a double edge. With Huck living under the radar from the time he got out of juvie until 3 years ago, putting on the pressure could get him burrowed deeper. I said, living underground can be an education. What do you mean? He may have been innocent of what put him in juvie, but the experience and what followed could have taught him nasty habits. Strangulation and mutilation for fun and profit? How would a guy like that get in with the Vanders? Maybe there's kind-hearted, gentle, nurturant, rich folk. It happens. Think so? You don't? I'm sure there are some like that, but I have to wonder if the kind of ego it takes to amass all of that dough excludes kindness. Ace Detective Valdemar Lennon. Power to the people. He thrust a clenched fist and had to bend his arm to avoid hitting the car's headliner. Drive to Moog Hill, and all this failure is giving me an appetite. You say the same thing about success. Least I'm consistent. We stashed the car in the staff lot and walked to the restaurant. The room was buzzing, and 2 long tables filled the white-collar co-workers, and a corner booth occupied by Mo Reed and Liz Wilkinson. The 2 of them sat closer together than required for business. Serving bowls were untouched, and Reed had his jacket on, but he'd removed his tie, spread his collar. Liz Wilkinson's unnetted hair was a wealth of glossy ringlets. A real blue dress worked well with her skin tone. He smiled, she laughed. Their elbows bumped. They both laughed. They saw us simultaneously and startled like kids caught playing doctor. Reed shot his feet. Lou, Doc. Dr. Wilkinson got interesting stuff to tell us about those finger bones. About time we got something, huh? Jabbering fast, Liz Wilkinson stared up at them. Milo eyed a plate of lamb. I covered you on Curie, Detective Reed. She, Dr. Wilkinson, likes it. Liz Wilkinson said, it just so happened to be one of my favorite cuisines, so when Moses suggested it, I thought, great. I'm adding this plate to my list. Join us, Reed said, with more volume than necessary. The bespectacled woman emerged from the rear of the restaurant. Today's sari was blood red. The sight of Milo made her glow, and she hurried back to the kitchen. She sure looks happy, said Liz Wilkinson. He's a good customer, said Reed. The lieutenant? Moments later, a platter of lobster arrived with a flourish. Liz said, Whoa, someone's VIP. Thanks for letting us ride your coattail, Lieutenant. Milo's fine, Doctor. So what do you have for us? We assembled the Palingens from the box and ended up with 3 complete sets. Given the dimensions of the left hand on all 3 of your buried victims, it was fairly easy to match everything up. Laura Chenwin's digits were noticeably larger than those of the other 2, and number 3, Mrs. Montooth's, showed clear signs of arthritis. And the other finding is the bones were subjected to an acid wash, sulfuric acid specifically diluted to the level where it debrided, removed soft tissue, but did no serious damage to the bone. I suspected some sort of treatment right off. The surfaces are much smoother, polished, really, than you'd expect from time and water and decomp. I did a scraping and found traces of sulfuric acid in the outer layer for all 3 victims. Mo Reed said, shining them up fits with a personal trophy. So does placing them in a fancy box, I said. The question is why go to all of that trouble and then abandon the catch in a way that guaranteed discovery. That makes me wonder if they started as souvenirs but changed to something else a taunt. Look what I did, said Milo. It's consistent with the games Hernandez found in the storage unit. Playing with us, Liz Wilkinson said. What kind of games? Reed said. Just the boards, Monopoly Life. Money and basic existence, she said. That's pretty primal. Reed said. Money, existence, ending someone else's existence. He shifted closer to her. She didn't mind. I said, Selena's murder also supports an exterionist angle. Up until her, the killer chose victims he considered throwaways and buried them where they could have remained indefinitely. Selena's murder was called in, her body left out in the open, and with ID in her purse. He wanted us to know who she was and what he'd done to her, Reed said. And with her there, he was hoping that we'd search that marsh and find the others. And if you didn't, there'd be other prompts. Milo said, he stops paying for storage, knows the unit will come up just around the time that he's going to do Selena. Whole damn thing's a production. Liz Wilkinson grimaced. Treating the fingers with acid means that he kept the bodies, maybe to play with them. Reed said, you okay? Fine. I just usually don't see this side of it. As she moved to smooth hair from her face, her fingers brushed his cuff. People ask me all the time if I get grossed out working with remains. When I tell them I love it, they look at me funny. But down at the tissue level, you can deny. Once I start thinking about a human being connected to what's on the table. She pushed her plate away. Guess I'd better getting back. If you want, Moses, we can talk about that other stuff later. I'll walk you out. When Reed returned to the restaurant, Milo said, what other stuff? Pardon? What you'll be talking to the good doctor about. Reed went scarlet. Oh, that. She's putting together a forensic reading list. I figured it's something I should know. The power of education. You eating any of those lamb? All yours, Lou. Guess I should also be booking. Why? Thought I'd go by the Vander's house and maybe I can catch Huck coming or going. Milo shook his head. I'll go through his eminence, get some patrol officers into civvies and to run shifts. You've meant for bigger and better. Like what? Go nationwide on unsolves, featuring missing limbs and body parts treated with chemicals. Start with that hands, but don't limit yourself, Reed said. Legs, arms, whatever. Heads, shoulders, knees, and toes. I don't care if it's long as it's something got cut off. You're figuring that he could have switched techniques? As Dr. Delaware likes to remind me, patterns are for fabric. He turned to me. If the bodies were kept around to play with, the Vander's property probably isn't the crime scene. Estate manager or not, setting up Dr. Frankenstein lab in that place would be too risky, Reed said. Not if the Vanders are also involved in the weird stuff. Even so, Moses, they've got a kid on the premises, and kinky parties after Junior's gone to bed is one thing, and even there, I'm doubtful because we've got no evidence saying that these people are bizarre. But hacking up corpse in the manse with Junior around is over the top. So Huck has another place. Maybe that's why we haven't seen him. He's hiding out in his kill crib. Check with the assessor. See if he pays property tax on anything. Rentals are problems no way we'll be able to trace unless we go public on him, and I'm not ready for that. I said, when we were at the Pacific Storage, you made a crack about people living there, and the attendant denied it, but I'm sure it happens. Milo thought about that. Worth checking out, including back at the Pacific itself. We never showed the Clerk Huck's picture. Your plate getting too full, Mo. Not even close, said Reed. Give me more. Nothing more. Sure you don't want any lunch? No thanks, let me get going. After finishing Reed's and Wilkinson's food, Milo topped off his meal and with the lobster and the 2 bowls of the rice pudding. He returned to his office. I went home and repeated searches on Travis Huck, Edward, Eddie Ed Huckenstrader came up empty. Keyword Simon Vander pulled up the 8-figure grocery chain sale and a couple of mentions of Vander and his wife on charity committees, the art museum, the zoo, Huntington library, your basic genteel philanthropy. If Simon and Nadine Vander had a dark side, they'd hit the fact from cyberspace. At 48, I logged off, talked to Robin about dinner, and pasta sounded good to both of us. She kept working, and I made a run to the market at the top of the glen, called my service. One message from the Alma Reynolds. The operator said she said if she didn't remember her name that she's Syl Duboff's lover. I remember her. Interesting way to label yourself, don't you think? Dr. Delaware, Simon or someone's lover. Then again, you deal with all types. Alma Reynolds' phone rang 8 times. I was just about to hang up when she answered. Lieutenant Sturgis didn't call back. I figured I'd get the same from you, she said. I'm running out to the mortuary. They're releasing Syl in a few days. He always talked about cremation as long as it could be done in a eco-respectful manner. The idea, of course, would be if all of us were just placed in compost hemp. What's up? Anything new on the case? Not yet, sorry. Well, I thought of something. Been ruminating about what could have gotten Syl over to the marsh that night. Not that he needed prodding. He was always going there, to clean up trash and make sure that no one had trespassed. He had a thing for that place. Truth is, he was somewhat obsessed. I know why. His parents were beatniks who moved from Ann Arbor to a rental part of Wisconsin, and the family lived in a cabin near, guess what? Fresh water and reeds. A huge marsh fed by one of the Great Lakes. Syl said it was perfect, idyllic, until a paper mill opened up nearby and polluted the hell out of it. And all of the fish died and the air smelled horrible, and eventually Syl's family had to move to Milwaukee, and both his parents died of cancer, and he was convinced it was the toxic air and water. Even though his father was a 3-pack-a-day smoker who got lung cancer, and breast cancer ran in his mother's family. But try telling Syl that. Try telling him anything. I said, I can't see why the bird marsh would be important to him. Obsessed, said Alma Reynolds. Sometimes it got in the way. Of what? Us. We'd be relaxing and he'd jump up suddenly. Says that he needed to drive over and make sure everything was okay. It annoyed me, but I rarely said anything because I could see that physiologically behind the idealism, but the night he was that night, I really didn't want to go, and he defied me. So he had to be something major. He told you that caller promised to solve the murders, and I believed him. And when those bodies showed up, Syl took it personally, and if he'd allowed something to happen to his baby, he was also worried the murders would be used to say the marsh was no longer pristine, and that would open the door to development. And I knew it sounds paranoid, but Syl didn't dare or dance to anyone else's beat. Just the opposite. The world waltzed. He two-stepped. I said, with that level of anxiety, he'd follow any lead. Exactly. I'm glad I reached you, and I'm not Sturgis. Did Syl give any indication he knew who'd called? No, she said. I thought about that, trying to remember if he'd indicated one way or the other, and he didn't. You're thinking of someone he respected might have gotten him over. someone who supported his work. Do you have a list of Save the Marsh members? Never saw one. Don't know that one exists. Who's in charge of the office now? Don't know. Don't want to know, she said. I washed my hands of all of it. No one answered at Save the Marsh. The group's board of directors listed the progressive billionaires who'd tried to build on the land, in addition to Stilford Duboff, a woman named Chaparral Stevens, and two men, Thomas Friedskin, M.D., and Lionel Mergasmer, Ph.D. Chaparral Stevens was a serial Madre-based jewelry designer. Dr. Frankenstein was a 90-year-old olanthropologist and emeritus at the UWS Med School. Professor Mergersammer was a Stanford astronomer, and not a likely bunch, criminal-wise, but I printed their names. I looked for fundraisers held for the marsh, found 3 West Side cocktail parties, no listed guests. Backing away from the trees, I thought about the forest. Why had Stilford Duboff been lured to his death? Dispatching him didn't fit with the thrill-seeking aspect of sexual psychopath. The only motive that made sense was that he'd known too much, knowledge that would come up innocently or otherwise. More bones beneath the muck. Aerial photos had revealed nothing, but the earth had a way of swallowing and digesting death. Our Alma Reynolds was right, and Duboff's desire to play savior to undo his childhood trauma had led him to walk into a trap. That felt analytically pat, but I turned it over and came up with nothing further. A soft rap on my office door snapped the tape loop. You look engrossed, said Robin. No, I'm finished. If you're not, I can cook. I got up and we walked to the kitchen. She said, Co-op E-ration, just like a Sesame Street. Want to be Bert or Ernie? Maybe Oscar. That kind of day, huh? Blanche waddled in and smiled. I said, she can set this table. Chapter 23. Head, arms, and legs in Missouri, said Mo Reed. Head, hands, and feet in New Jersey. 3 hands and feet only in... He scanned his notes. Washington State. West Virginia and Ohio, Milo said. Nothing with just hands. Nope, and no acid wash. Plus, in 3 cases, they have a good idea who it is, but don't have enough evidence to bring charges. We were in a West Side interview room at the end of another draggy day, and Milo follows up call to Buddy Ware had invoked a still working on it message from the attorney's paralegal. Plainclothes surveillance of the house on Cal Martinmo had revealed no movement other than the entry of the gardener's crew. None of the groundsmen had any idea if Huck was inside the house, and when Milo convinced one of them to ring the front doorbell, no one answered. Huck continued to refuse telephonic invitations to talk with the police, and Reed said, "The one in Jersey's, there sure is a mob deal. Victim was ID'd by a surgical scar on the back. Some goomba with the disc problems. Anything else?" Reed shook his head. I said, "Any of the amputations spare only one hand?" "No, because chopping was used to hinder the investigation. One case has nothing to do with that, and our hands are symbolic." "Of what?" said Milo. "I'm good with questions, not answers," I said. "But maybe something to do with Selena's piano playing. People play piano with both hands, Alex. The right hand plays the melody, and both of their expressions said thanks, but no thanks, an alternative." I said, "It's someone's trying to make the killings appear bizarre." Psychosexual. Fake out, said Milo. To hide what? I keep coming back to Selena. She really stands out from what... from the others. And what if this is all about her and the other women were prep? Milo said, over a year of prep. What made Selena so important? Something she knew turned her into a threat, something serious enough to take her computer. Same reason Duboff got killed. Long-term planning is usually about money, Reed said, and the Vanders have big money, and keeping coming back to them. And Huck, who works for them. Milo said, if you're right about the other women, digging up background on them isn't a good use of our time. I said the killer had to connect with them somehow, so it could still bear fruit. Reed said, I've been up and down the airport stroll and no one remembers Huck. It's a transiterity pollution, and people have short memories for all sorts of reasons. Milo got up, paced, pulled out a Pantella. Mo Reed relaxed when the cigar dropped back into his pocket. A guy goes for hookers. Who says he limits himself to one neighborhood? Another stroll, said Reed. Huck lives in Palacitas, I said. For pure fun, he could stay on the west side, but when he's traveling for victims, he travels to where he's less likely to be recognized. Maybe somewhere closer to his kill crib, said Reed, which could be relatively close to the Vander house. Not that I've found anything in this messenger's files or anything else. Milo said, the airport, the marsh, the storage facility, they're all pretty close together, so the crib could be in that vicinity. Reed said, to find a rental we have to go public. Hope someone tips. It may come to that, Moses, but not yet. Let's stick with the second stroll angle. If we can find another working girl Huck frequented, learn he's into rough sex, maybe even put his hands on someone else's neck, it sets up cause for a warrant. I could do Lincoln Boulevard farther north. Good idea. That doesn't pan out. We move on to the Strip. In fact, we don't wait. Tonight, you do Lincoln when sunset from Doney to Fairfax, and I'll take Sunset east to Ramport and then downtown. I'll do a refax Huck's license to Vice, and maybe someone's memory I'll be jogged. What about surveillance at the house? We continue to leave that to the patrol. Huck doesn't show his face soon. I guess I'll have to talk to the brass about a press conference. In addition to the deep borrowed risk, we've really got nothing on the guy, and he's already been the victim of official injustice. Can't you just hear the defense attorney's opening statement? He turned to me. In terms of Duboff getting gutted by another marsh hugger, maybe, but making our way through the echo crowded is low priority. I said, I'll see what I can find. Reed said, might as well join the department, Doc. Milo said, he's my friend. Watch your mouth. Save the Marsh. A citizens' committee was headquartered in a beige frame bungalow in Playa del Rey, where the district turns into a cute little village of cafes and shops. 2 miles from the marsh and closer yet to Pacific Storage. The building was shuttered. No cars sat in the driveway. No ad hoc memorial to Duboff, no evidence at all he'd been murdered. I walked across the street to the eatery called Check's Dolphin, where wood, blue shutters, screen porch, a handful of snackers. I ordered a roll and coffee, and finished half before asking the garlic proprietress if she knew who to contact at the bungalow. She said, none, Monsieur, I have never seen anyone there. I began phoning the people on the Save the Marsh board. The voicemail message at Chaparral Stevens' jewelry business was soundtracked by bird squawks, trickling water, and wind chimes. Stephen's voice was low-pitched and sultry, her speech slightly halting. The tantric ecstasy that she claimed due to my six-mouthed squirreled retreat at the Montraverde Cloud Forest Reserve is breathtaking. Costa Rica came across like cannabis langout. The secretary at the U's Anthropology Center told me that Dr. Thomas Friedskin had been heard from in years. At least I've never seen him. In fact, I hope I'm not wrong. I think he passed away. Oh, too bad, I said. Are you a colleague? A student? Oh, she said. Well, hold on, and let me check. Several beats later, yes, I'm sorry, he passed last year. One of his other students, Dr. Einsberg, says the funeral took place on the boat. Ash scattering, you know. Dr. F. loved nature. Well, all should be like that, right? Go back where we came from and stop making a big mess. Dr. F. was involved with the bird marsh. How nice. I love birds. Professor Linnell Mergeshammer was on full-year sabbatical at the at the Royal Observatory in Greenwent, England. Everyone taking downtown. When was the last time that I'd bothered? I tried the studio owned by the progressive billionaires, got exactly what I'd expected. Long stretches on hold, and eventual hung up. An absence board of directors implied ceremonial titles, meaning running the organization was left to anyone willing to shoulder the responsibility, meaning Silford Duboff. Who else would know about the group? The volunteer kid who'd taken the killer's call? Chance Brandt? No, listen for the Brentwood residence, but Stephen A. Brandt's law office was in the book. Recalling his hostility, I figured him for a Stonewall or a Tantrum and called the Windward School, fudging my police status and asking firmly to speak to Headmaster Rumley. I cajoled a secretary into forking over Master Brandt's cell number. Yeah? I told him who I was. He said yeah. Chance, who did you see at the office besides Mr. Duboff? Yeah. Female giggles and hip-hop, bass drum. I repeated the question. That place. His words slurred. His girlfriend remained appreciative. What about it? Chance. Yeah. Male ladder bottomed the girl's squalls. Who do you see? Chance. Yeah. Okay. We'll talk to the police station. Nobody, okay? No one except Duboff. It's his thing. Marsh the man. Rising volume on the background hilarity. Like he fucks it. All that mud. Using the present tense. Duboff's murder hadn't hit the news. I thought of telling him about it. Hung up instead. Not to protect the kid's delicate sensibilities, afraid he'd have none.